I decided I'm going to make me a little cold start video here. Cold start. So what you're looking at here is a 5.3 liter Chevy LS engine, and it is cold. And it's kind of hard to get a look at the exhaust manifold here, but you can see my fingers are touching it, and I can grab a hold of it firmly, okay? And this cast iron exhaust manifold, why, it's cold. I mean, can't you tell? Can't you tell by the way my fingers are just laying on that manifold? Well, it's cold. Well, anyway, here's the point I want to make. All right, I have me a little Harbor Freight temp gun here, and I've had this thing for probably something close to 20 years, maybe, I don't know, more than a decade. And it's cheap and dirty, but it works. It's not accurate though, but I can show you what today's temperature is, if you can read that. Okay, so it's 61.9 degrees Fahrenheit, 44% humidity, and this is for my little outdoor weather station, and it's reasonably accurate. Maybe not scientifically accurate, but it's reasonably accurate. Now, I'll take my little temp gun, and yeah, I don't know if you can read that or not. I'm going to backlight it here. But I take my little temp gun and I shoot it at there. And okay, I'm shooting it right next to here, and I think you can read it. And it says about 55 degrees. And that's because it is not accurate. It's not scientifically accurate. But what it can tell you, it can give you a reference. So 56 degrees is what it reads here on something that is ambient, okay? And that's the thing. If you want to prove the temperature of something, well, you can just take your cheapo little temp gun and you can point it at something. You see, I'm pointing it down in the engine bay here. I'm pointing it right at that exhaust manifold, and it's reading 54. Now 53. So basically now 52. Depends on where you point it, but pretty much down here. The point I'm making is I pointed this cheapo temp gun at something that is ambient to give me a reference, okay? So you can show the people on the video that you're not lying, you know, you're not pulling any kind of a stunt, okay? But, you know, I see these people, they grab the manifold and they say, this is cold. Well, how do I know viewing the video? I'm not saying you're lying. You sound sincere. But this could be warm right here. I could have been running this engine. I do it all the time. If I have to go in here and work on it, it'll be hot from a long drive, and I'll come home and I'll open the hood. And yeah, you'll have to wait. You know, you'll have to wait 20 minutes, half an hour with the hood open, and then you can touch this, okay? It will not burn you, but this engine is still toasty warm, okay? And this metal surface will be warm, but it's not going to burn my fingers, and I could just press my hands on it, and I can grab it really hard, and I can just say, it's cold, folks, take it from me, it's cold, you know? There's nothing stopping me from acting like this piece of metal here is cold when it's actually nice and toasty warm. It's not burning my fingers after the engine's been shut down for a little while. It's no longer too hot to touch, but the engine is still warm. And so if I were to go and start the engine at that point, well, it would not be a cold start, okay? And you know, this is an injected engine and it doesn't care. Right? This is a modern injected engine where the fuel air is all electronically metered and everything, and this engine pretty much doesn't care. You see people do this stuff on engines that are old and carbureted. And then, yeah, it's impressive when everything is tuned just right that you get a real nice cold start with no hesitation or trouble at all. But the point I'm making is, if you want to prove to people, okay, especially if it's a car for sale, if you want to prove to people, then, you know, why don't you just get yourself a cheapo little temp gun, you know, and don't tell me these things are expensive and rare and unobtainable. They're everywhere. Everybody has these stupid things. So, you know, why do I see so many cold start videos where some guy is grabbing an exhaust manifold with all the sincerity he can muster, okay? And he's telling the folks at home, take it from me, folks. This engine is cold. Look at me lay my hand on it. It doesn't tell me anything, okay? You could take your little temp gun and you could point it at some object that's in the shade and you could show us the ambient temperature. Maybe you can even show us, you know, a thermometer mounted nearby or whatever, and give us some kind of a visual reference, something that shows us a number, something that we can see on video, because we can't feel what your finger feels, and you can act like anything. And I'm not saying you're lying, I'm just saying, you know, why do you bother? Because it doesn't prove anything. You could get yourself a cheap little temp gun, point it at something ambient, show us what you have for an ambient, point it at the engine, okay, and show us that the engine matches ambient. And then we know we're looking at a cold engine. And it does not even have to be an accurate thermometer. It can be off 3 or 4 degrees, whatever. Doesn't matter. It's just show us that the engine is actually at ambient. Then go start the engine, and then we can all go, ooh, look at how smooth, and, you know, look at how smooth that thing starts up, and no hesitation, and runs like a champ and everything. So, there you go. Okay, so here I am on another day, and I've got my trusty little cheap and dirty Harbor Freight temperature gun. And it's been a mild, pleasant day today, and, well, I don't think you can read that, but it's about 70 degrees. 70 degrees right now, and temperature gun, you know, it reads a few degrees lower than that because it's not accurate, but it doesn't matter because you're only using it for comparison purposes. So yeah, I had about 63 degrees there, and then if I were to shoot it at the wheel of this truck sitting here parked, then it's at ambient. And you know, even the body of the truck is at ambient. However, this engine has been running, and it ran up to full operating temperature, but it's been sitting, so it's cooled down a lot. It's been sitting for about an hour with the hood open on a mild day, and so it's cooled down a lot, but it's not a cold engine. And if I can find places in the engine core here that are in the neighborhood, it all depends on where you point it. You know, but 115, there's warmer. 110, 112. I saw 117. There you go, 123. If I aim it right, there you go, 125. So if I aim it right at the core of the engine in there, you know, down in the valley, 120, well, you would not be able to lay your hand on 120 degrees and grip it tight. You know, I would agree that you could touch 121 degrees and it's not going to burn you, but you're not going to be able to wrap your hand around it tight and keep it there for very long. That's going to be uncomfortable. Okay, but then if I let's see if I can get the laser. I'm aiming it right at the exhaust manifold. I don't know if you can see that there. Okay, that's the exhaust manifold. That's a cast iron exhaust manifold. Okay, and I got about, let's see, 98 degrees, maybe right around 100, 102-ish, well, 97, 96. Okay, and this thing reads a few degrees low. So you know, if it's showing high 90s, it's actually 3 or 4 degrees higher than that. Okay, so we've established that. Now, I'm going to take my hand here, and I don't think, let's see, I got to reach in here. Okay, there's my fingers, there's my hand. I'm grabbing that exhaust manifold, folks. I'm grabbing it hard, okay? You see how I've got my hand on it? I'm gripping it tight. I'm yanking on it. I'm grabbing this thing tight enough. I'm wiggling the truck back and forth. Okay, you probably can't see that, but this exhaust manifold, I'm grabbing it tight, okay? And it's over 100 degrees. And yeah, it feels nice and toasty warm. But, you know, I could sit here and pretend and make believe, and I could say, that engine is cold, folks. Look at me grab this exhaust pipe. It's cold. I'm grabbing it. Yeah, so, you know, and it doesn't take any acting skill. I can just lay my hand all over this thing, you know, and it's fine. It's comfortable. It's a little over 100 degrees. And we've established that, you know, down in the actual, you know, valley of the core of the engine, it's more like 120 degrees in there, okay? And then so if I were to just, you know, this is not a carbureted engine, so there's nothing to prove here. But, you know, if I were to just start the engine up now and say, yeah, see, I grabbed the exhaust manifold, and that's proof that this is a cold engine, folks. Well, no, it's not. It doesn't prove a darn thing, okay? And, you know, so if you have a carbureted engine, and, you know, it's the core of the engine is at 120 degrees, well, then that's going to make a big difference. It's, you know, it's not trivial, okay? It's not a cold engine, but I just showed you that I can grab a hold of that exhaust manifold and I can pretend that it's cold, and it's actually, you know, it's not cold. It's a little over 100 degrees. The engine is about, you know, in its core, it's probably about 120 degrees, and if this was a carbureted engine, it would start up like a warm engine. You know, it would not give you any of the characteristics that you would get from a cold engine. You know, you wouldn't need to set the choke, and you know, it would start right up. So that's just the point I'm making. You know, if you want to prove it's a cold engine, well, then you just get yourself a cheap and dirty temp gun, and you show the folks at home. And it doesn't matter that the temp gun is not accurate, because, you know, like I showed you, you can point it at something ambient, you can point it at the ground, you can point it at a wheel, you can point it at the fender, okay? And then take whatever reading you get, and then if you hold the temp gun on the engine and you get the same reading, then, you know, or something close within a degree or two, then you've proven to the viewers at home that they are looking at a cold engine being started. Okay, fine. Thanks for listening. So long.